Hey everyone, I'm Nicole.
And I'm Gabrielle.
And we are the hosts of the Spiritual Sisters podcast.
Join us every week as we discuss all the spiritual topics like astrology, mediumship, psychic insights, and so much more.
We are often joined by others we have met along our spiritual journey who are well versed in many of these areas.
Get ready for enlightening discussions and interviews and personal experiences that we hope will expand your mind and get you thinking outside of the box.
Whether you're a seasoned spiritual seeker or just beginning your spiritual journey, there's something here for everyone.
Check us out every Tuesday wherever you get your podcasts. See you then.
Bye!
Hi, beautiful souls, and welcome back to the Soul Ecosystem Podcast. I am your host, Anna Rising. And on this podcast, we discuss all things soul contracts using a modality that combines Jewish mysticism, tarology, astrology, and numerology. Now, today's episode is going to be on two soul contracts. We're going to do a little bit of compare and contrast because I came across a clip that was theorizing that Albert Einstein's first wife was really behind the genius that is Albert Einstein. The reasoning they gave for theorizing this is that a lot of Albert Einstein's notes were in her handwriting. He also gave her the $1 million that he won from the Nobel Peace Prize to her. They thought that he was compensating her for her input, for her participation in his studies. And she was actually a physicist and mathematician. She was absolutely brilliant. So I decided to look into this for you and see how much weight all of this carries, because we know that this would not be the first time that a woman's work is taken and pawned off as a man's work simply because of the social structure during that time. But before we dive into that, let me give you guys a bit of a backstory. So, Mileva Marić was born in Serbia in 1875 and became one of the very few women studying physics at that time. She enrolled at the Swiss Federal Polytechnic School in Zurich, where she met Albert Einstein. The two of them bonded not just romantically, but intellectually, and they studied side by side, exchanging notes, tackling equations, and debating physics late into the night. Einstein himself described her as his intellectual companion. One of the most quoted lines that comes from a letter Einstein wrote to her in 1901, he said, "How happy and proud I will be when the two of us together will have brought our work on relative motion to a victorious conclusion." So that in and of itself denotes some collaboration between him and Mileva, and this is where the controversy begins. Some take this as evidence that she co-created the foundation of what would later become his theory of relativity, Einstein's theory of relativity. Others argue that it was romantic phrasing and that Einstein was using our, quote unquote, the way lovers often do without meaning any scientific co-authorship, which I think is just a convenient excuse. The truth, we don't have drafts of those famous 1905 papers in her handwriting or any hard evidence that she co-wrote them, but we do know that she was deeply engaged in the conversations that shaped Einstein's thinking. There are a few places where Mileva's handwriting shows up in Einstein's notes, such as copied lecture notes and a draft reply to a physicist named Max Planck. So this suggests that she helped him kind of like as a secretary, as a copyist, editor, or assistant, but it does not prove her authorship. But still, Einstein often discussed his work with her, and many historians believe that she was a sounding board, somebody that sharpened his mind in dialogue. And that, in and of itself, is not a small role, to be a sounding board for one of the most esteemed intellectuals in history, especially in a world where women's contributions to science were often erased. Einstein and Mileva married in 1903, but their relationship started to grow strained over time and especially took a turn after Einstein's rise to fame. So by 1914, when Einstein moved to Berlin, things took a turn. He actually drafted a now infamous set of conditions for her if they were to remain together. It included rules like make sure his clothes and laundry were in order, bring meals to his room, and renounce all personal relations with him. Needless to say, Mileva refused, and she returned to Zurich with their 2 sons, and they formally divorced in 1919. In an interesting twist, as part of the divorce settlement, Einstein promised that when he eventually won the Nobel Prize, the money would go directly to Mileva. And when he did win it in 1921, that money was indeed placed in her trust to support her and their children. Some see this as a silent acknowledgement of her contribution in his work, and others see it as him simply offering financial security in lieu of alimony. Either way, it is remarkable that the Nobel Peace Prize money, one of the greatest scientific honors, ended up in Mileva's hands. So now that we have a little backstory to what transpired and a little sense of their relationship and what kind of did it in for them, we are free to explore their soul contracts. I do also want to add, however, that when Einstein moved to Berlin, he grew very close to his cousin, Elsa Lowenthal, who later became Elsa Einstein. She was both his maternal and paternal cousin. Albert and Elsa's mothers were sisters, and their fathers were cousins. At first, Elsa acted as a caretaker figure. She hosted him for meals, looked after his health, and provided companionship. Many biographies describe her as offering him comfort during a turbulent time. When Mileva, his then wife, discovered Einstein's attachment to Elsa, this became one of her breaking points. 4 years after his divorce from Mileva, Einstein ended up marrying Elsa Lowenthal. So while there's no telling if Elsa was the biggest cause for his and Mileva's separation, if she kind of initiated that, it certainly put a strain on Albert and Mileva's marriage. All right, now we can start looking at their soul contracts. Mileva's was very short and sweet. It was very interesting. This is somebody that does not have a lot of karma accrued from her past life. However, the karma that she has carried over into this incarnation is pretty serious. There's this energy of wanting a certain love so bad, wanting a certain partnership so bad that either manipulation or even magic was used in an effort to win this partner over. So she is carrying the karma of violating somebody's free will. And that is a very serious karmic imprint on the soul path. It is not something that is taken lightly. However, the subconscious programs that she's running kind of speak to her not having as much karma as I usually see in soul contracts. There's a little bit of toxicity in Mileva's chart, which is really surprising given that we read about Albert's conditions for her staying married to him, for them staying married together. That was a little bit of a tough thing to digest. But as far as soul contracts go, the programs that Mileva was working with, one of them was that this is a person that knows how to do business. She has the heart of an entrepreneur. She can help in very difficult, complex situations. She can help get people out of like really tough spots. She's like almost an intellectual bomb diffuser. She's really good under pressure and really good at handling complex situations with calmness and ease. Where others might feel pressured, might kind of bolt under the pressure or crumble under the pressure, this is where she shines. Whenever she gets into a position where she really needs to hunker down and use her brains, like imagine a way out of a scenario, she can do it. So this is somebody that is very, very motivated, driven, constantly evolving, and evolving others along their path as well. Now, this is a very, very endearing trait to have. But when it starts to cross into a negative territory, we see this manifesting as a person that thinks that they cope with tasks better than others. So there's a little bit of arrogance that comes into play, a little bit of selfishness, and taking on work that isn't theirs. Now I can see how this can manifest as her taking on Albert's work and kind of doing his work for him, taking on that role and then giving it to him. But this doesn't feel like she's creating it and he is taking it from her. In fact, the negative aspect of this subconscious program is that they could take other people's inventions, they could steal other people's ideas, other people's creations, and pass it off as their own. So it's very interesting to me that there's this theory going around that Albert did that. To me, it really feels like Mileva was trying to kind of insert herself into Albert Einstein's life, into his work, into his job. And I'm looking at that from the perspective where she was trying to make her mark on the world. She was trying to make an input on the world where she could with the limited opportunities that were available to her at that time because of her gender. But there is no mention of somebody stealing her ideas, which I found very interesting because there are soul contracts that speak to somebody's life work being taken from them, like stolen from them not being given credit for something that they accomplished or did. So as soon as I saw that in Mileva's chart, I'm like, okay, I feel like we are barking up the wrong tree, kind of. I don't want to take away from Mileva's brilliance. I do feel there may have been some resentment here for the opportunities that were afforded to Albert Einstein and the opportunities that she wasn't able to have. So I feel like she was kind of trying to piggyback off of Albert Einstein's success and his work. But I do believe that she did make contribution to it. I do believe that she was his sounding board, but definitely not, from the looks of it, not in the way where he is taking her work. As far as subconscious programs go, she has a very limited load, so to speak. She doesn't have a lot of karma to clear in this lifetime other than this karma from taking somebody's free will. She does have another subconscious program that speaks to her talent as a writer, as being able to put her thoughts down on paper. She has a lot of creativity. She's able to understand and access other dimensions because she's so creative. Other than this program that's called the Fairy World Writer-Director program, she has the adoption subconscious program, which is, again, she's kind of adopting somebody else's tasks, is what this kind of insinuates. She's kind of taking on somebody else's role. When you think about this program, the adoption program, imagine a person who hasn't been asked to take something on, who hasn't been asked to step into a role, and they officially step into a role. Right now I'm getting the analogy of a step parent that tries to take on the role of the mother, but like in a very forceful way, in a very, I want to be the only mom you have when she already has a mother. That's the kind of analogy that I'm getting in order to understand this program in particular. So it's not that she was so much trying to take Albert Einstein's credit. She was just taking on work that wasn't really hers. This doesn't mean that she wasn't a brilliant mathematician, a brilliant physicist, because I feel like you would have to be a whole other level of brilliant in order to be able to go back to back with Albert Einstein. I don't want to take away from that at all or make light of that. It's just that she wasn't able to kind of formulate her own image, like really ground herself in what she wants to do and what she wants to leave, the mark she wants to leave on the world, instead of kind of playing along with Albert's. So I hope that explained adoption program for you. The one other subconscious program she is working with is comfort. Comfort as a subconscious program is kind of a type A personality. This is somebody that needs to be moving all the time. They don't like to sit still. They don't like to kind of be in their heads. They like movement. They like excitement and constant, like, new things stimulating their brain. They are able to multitask very, very well, and to always be on the go, to move on from project to project continuously. They love to be in that environment. They thrive off of taking care of things, attending to tasks around them, and they strive to bring any task to completion, anything that they set out to do to completion. So this is not somebody that picks up a task, forgets about it in the middle of the task, and then leaves it for a few weeks. When they do something, they have to complete it, then move on to the next. So this puzzles me a little bit about the demands that Albert Einstein had for their marriage in his letter to her, when he was talking about, oh, you need to do this and this in order for us not to separate. This kind of makes me a little stumped. I feel like that was an excuse to kind of cut her out of his life. And from the sounds of it, we're starting to see this side to Mileva where I feel like she was doing everything. Not only was she an intellectual match to Albert Einstein, we're talking about him saying that, oh, you need to get my clothes ready and ironed and like bring me my food or something in the morning. I feel like he was a little bit intimidated by how much she was able to accomplish. And I feel like he was kind of sending her back into the kitchen. I feel like that letter that he sent to her was a bit of a slap in the face to be like, hey, know where you belong. I don't need you like backing up my theories or like discussing this with me. I feel like that was just his way of forcing her to remember her place, so to speak. Now, this program, the comfort program, we see this getting a little bit difficult to handle when it operates in the negative. A person with this program may start to be very fussy and micromanagery. They may start to get very nitpicky about how things are done, how somebody makes the bed, how somebody makes their coffee, how somebody pours the milk into the cereal bowl. Like if you've ever had a debate with somebody, what do you put first into the bowl, the milk or the cereal? This is somebody that really likes to be particular, and that kind of escalates when they are in a negative state. So I can see how the strain that was on the marriage can kind of crumble over, there we go, trickle over into Mileva getting particularly picky and further driving Albert away. Do I think that she was the cause to their divorce? I can't say. I don't think so. It feels like Albert Einstein really wanted somebody that was more traditional. And I feel that he may have found that in Elsa. But that is what we are working with when we are looking at Mileva's soul contract. I feel like that's a very short and sweet look into who Mileva was as a person and what her contributions were in this relationship. In regards to Albert Einstein, we see a little bit more programs to work it with, a little more programs to work through. He has the burnout subconscious program, which means that once they get excited about something, they can pour all of their energy into it, like spend days and nights on something until they burn themselves out because they get so passionate about what it is that they do. This is very difficult to sustain in a relationship because you could lose this person for days at a time when they are doing something that they love to do if you aren't a part of that. When it comes to Albert Einstein's previous incarnation, it feels very, very interesting. The past life karma that he is having, that he is carrying over into this incarnation, is one of choosing between a calm, emotionally stable, almost dull relationship and a loving person versus a very passionate, wild, bold, and seductive relationship. This karma carried over into this incarnation for him, where he kind of was at that crossroads again, where he had to choose whether he wants that same old, boring, loving relationship or whether he wants to drop everything, take a chance, and run away with his mistress. That is the vibe that we are getting. There's no indication that Elsa Lowenthal was his mistress, that they had anything going on before their marriage later on, but my theory is that's what was happening. That's what was happening when he divorced Mileva, the familiar, loving relationship, to chase something new. And now we're going to jump back to subconscious programs again. In his soul contract, Albert Einstein's soul contract speaks to him having the academic knowledge program. Off the top of my head, I think Natalie Portman also has the academic knowledge program, as does Selena Gomez. And I'm sure there's other celebrities that I can't think of right now that have this program, but it just describes somebody that is very brilliant, very knowledgeable, either street smart, book smart, and also very stubborn. These kind of people like to make sense of things. They don't like not knowing something. They need something to be explained to them. They need to be able to figure something out in order to kind of have like peace. Otherwise, they can't sleep at night. And I don't want to drag this episode on very long, but there was two other programs that I thought were interesting to note. One being the Pure Stream program, which is a person that can channel spiritual knowledge, and they might not even know it, but there's this channel that they are kind of anchoring into reality that is a very, very powerful conductor of positive energy. These types of people can guide others, teach them, gather like-minded people around them, and usually are very spiritual, have this simpleness and kindness to them, and just strong personalities. Now, the negative side to that, when it is operating from a negative, this person can get involved in cult-like type of things. They may have this desire to get everything all at once and influence other people or manipulate other people to get what they want. So there are some downsides to that. All in all, again, there's nothing in Albert Einstein's chart that speaks to him taking credit for somebody else's work. So we can safely assume, based on Albert Einstein's and Mileva Marić's soul contract, that there was no stealing credit going on here. It does feel like Mileva was trying to get involved in his work as much as possible, and it could just be because she's so brilliant, so driven. she was just kind of putting her foot into the door and not so much as being the creator, the author of all of this. I do feel that she played a huge role in Albert Einstein's work. I do feel that she was a collaborator, and that perhaps is why he gave her the Nobel money that he received. And now that I'm thinking about the summation of this kind of analysis, this comparison between the two soul contracts, I do feel like I really dived into the negative side of Mileva's programs and not so much Albert Einstein's. So I want to touch on it a little bit because there is negative sides to each program. In regards to Albert Einstein, however, they don't seem as severe. There is potential for manipulation, for using his charisma, using his power over people, using his ability to convince others to their detriment with malicious intent. So there's a little bit of that going on for him. There's also this other side to his personality where he's very cautious with people. He expects a trick everywhere he goes. He's one of those people that will say, nothing in life is free. What was that saying? Nothing in life is free. Anyone that says otherwise is trying to sell you something? Is that how that saying goes? This is that vibe. This is somebody that isn't very trusting of others. He's been burned too many times before, so he's very, very not vigilant, but almost paranoid. And I feel like that comes along with being just smart. You know the statistics and the probability of something bad happening. So there's a little bit of that happening. And there's also a mother wound program. I feel like mother wounds usually breed a very specific type of man, and this kind of explains the demands that he wrote to Mileva in exchange for staying in the marriage. He really wanted somebody to take care of him. So I feel that he may not have felt taken care of as a child, so he was looking for that. He was looking for somebody to step into that role as his wife, but also kind of be his mother, his caretaker, right? And I get the sense that Mileva was doing that in the beginning, she was okay with playing that role, but as she started becoming more of his equal and kind of being hey, I want to do what you do too. I want to do this professionally. I think he was hey, we're married. I need you at home. I need you taking care of these things. I need you taking care of me. And maybe that's where the disconnect happened. Maybe that is where things started falling apart because Mileva was brilliant and able to hold her own, right? And that is all I have for you guys in terms of Albert Einstein and Mileva Marić's soul contract. Thank you guys so much for listening. Stay tuned for next Friday. We are going to be entering a new month of September, so I'm going to be doing a little energy read for the month of September next Friday. Be sure to tune in and listen. And if you wanted to get your own soul contract done, you can do so by going to www.thesoulecosystem or visit the Soul Ecosystem Etsy shop. Thank you guys so much. I will catch you next Friday and have a wonderful weekend.